with very few instances, been all verbal. So we are going to be requesting that the Navy leadership at Great Lakes provide us in writing all the criteria and conditions for ICE and DHS to occupy this one office building, specifically that it is office space only, that there are no lethal munitions that can be stored, that there will be no barracks or housing made available for the detainment of anyone, and that there is also no housing that will be made available for DHS personnel. Additionally, I did ask a question because I did hear a rumor about potentially Marine Corps reserves being activated. They said that they have not heard anything along those lines either. So there's also no housing that at this point has been committed to any reservists that will be activated as well. I do ask the community that as you deal with the members of the Navy, with our sailors, remember that these are men and women who are swore a duty and oath of office to defend us. They're doing their jobs. We are going to do the work on the political side, but let's make sure that we uphold our respectful members of our military who are doing their jobs and doing the best thing that they can and are doing everything that they can to remain apolitical in this terrible condition. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Congressman Snyder.
You got it?
I've got it.
While we're adjusting, could you just clarify, was this meeting this morning?
Yes,
Just now.
we just came from it.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
How long was it?
Guys, how's that?
We had the meeting, and then we toured both the building itself, and we also toured the area where the non-lethal munitions will be stored.
About 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So I just want to reiterate what the senators have said. Before I do, I want to thank the senators for working together to make sure we protect the mission of Naval Station Great Lakes and we protect the people we represent. And I'll touch on the Navy base. I'll touch on the deployment of ICE and where we're going from here. But Naval Station Great Lakes, I'm proud to represent Naval Station Great Lakes, proud to be here with Mayor Rockingham, Mayor of North Chicago. It is the largest training center of the United States Navy. Every single Navy recruit who enlists in the United States Navy comes to Great Lakes for basic training. At any given time, as Senator Durbin mentioned, up to 1,000 people are graduating each week. There's 10 to 12,000 recruits on base going through basic training, learning to become sailors, essential for the security of our nation. In addition, there are what are called A schools. There are sailors who are getting their training before they are deployed for their specific job in the Navy. They come back and they get reinforcement and new training. The preparedness of our Navy, the security of our nation depends on the mission of Naval Station Great Lakes, and we need to make sure that what DHS does while they're for 30 days at the base does not get in the way of that mission. And that was our first focus, to make sure is that the mission of Naval Station Great Lakes, the preparedness of our Navy, the preparedness of our sailors is maintained at the highest level at all times. Second point I'll make is that what we're seeing around the country, this administration working to scare and terrorize our communities, to send people in without insignia designations of what agency or what service they're with, covering their faces with masks, is doing nothing more than terrorizing and scaring people, not making us safer or more secure, but putting a wedge in our communities that needs to stop. It needs to stop right now. As far as, and the Senator touched on this as well, as far as crime in our communities, if the president wanted to focus on the crime, the states with the most crime, 8 of the 10 states with the highest crime rates are Republican-led, right? But it's not a Republican or Democratic issue. We need to address crime in our country. We need to make sure our communities are safe and secure. If the president wants to work with us in Congress to make sure our communities are safe and secure, he could release the $158 million he's holding up to address gun violence in this country. He could release the $800 million he is holding up to help our communities, our police departments, protect our communities, to fight violent crime, to invest in those communities. We need more social workers in our schools. We need more police. We need more first responders. That's how we fight crime. Not sending in National Guard who have a mission to protect our nation in other ways, to go into our cities and terrorize people, but working with our communities together, hand in glove, investing in our first responders, giving police the resources, the people, the training, the resources they need to keep our communities safe. That's not what this administration is doing. They're deflecting, trying to keep the eye of the American people away from the damage they're doing to our economy. Costs aren't down, to our security. Watch what's happening around the world. That's what we should be focused on. This administration should not be sending National Guard to Chicago, but to be working with Chicago and other cities around the country, making sure they're safe and secure. So it's now my privilege to turn it over to the mayor of North Chicago, Leon Rockingham.
Thank you. Let me just echo what has been said. Again, I'm Leon Rockingham, the mayor of the city of North Chicago. I want to thank Senator Durbin, Senator Duckworth, and Congressman Brad Snyder for being here and showing the light on what's going on at Naval Station Great Lakes. Again, you know, our biggest concern is making sure the men and women at Naval Station Great Lakes get the training that they need to protect our country. Again, it's been echoed. Naval Station Great Lakes is the only recruit training center in the United States based here in the city of North Chicago. North Chicago's concern is to be able to make sure that our city continues to be safe, that no one comes in and tries to deport any of our citizens. As you see right here, because of what has happened, I've got my patrol, my police department out where we could be other areas being throughout our city to be able to patrol throughout the city of North Chicago. So I just want to say thank you to both senators and to our congressmen for what they have done for the city of North Chicago to continue to make sure that we continue to be safe. Thank you very much, and I'll turn it back over to Senator Durbin.
Questions?
Questions?
You mentioned having things written down. Why is that important?
Well, I think several points that were made need to be memorialized. The starting date, pardon me, starting date and the end date is one of those things. Whether there'll be lethal weapons allowed on the base is another. No detention facilities. There are images of what's going to happen on this naval base that are wrong, based on the agreement that has been reached. We think it's best to put it in writing.
There's a Homeland Security official that said over 400 people were recently detained during an immigration enforcement action in Georgia. Is there any concern that would happen in our area?
Well, I'm concerned it might happen, but I don't think it will involve the Great Lakes in any capacity. They have made it clear that they don't have any housing or any capacity to detain, so I hope it doesn't happen anywhere, but I don't believe it could happen here.
Senator, did you get any insight from the conversation this morning about whether the ICE and DHS folks will be targeting other communities besides Chicago?
No.
But we know that the ICE unit that was in action in Southern California, they are on their way to Illinois. How concerned are you about things perhaps going sideways here in Illinois?
Very concerned. The reason for the meeting was to get some clarity. If you ask the average person what's going to happen at Great Lakes, they would have come back with an answer that might not be accurate at all. Yeah. What we learned today was there are limitations to the relationship between the Department of Homeland Security and the Navy. They were spelled out in detail in a long briefing, a very good briefing. So I think that's what we were trying to accomplish today. But no, I don't endorse that sort of conduct happening in California or Illinois.
When you talk about
Can I add to that? I just want to say that on that, you know, the fact that DHS refused to meet with us, they actually gave everybody the day off and they left the facility and they locked the doors. This is not the action of somebody that is proud of what they're doing, and this is not the action of somebody that is doing something legal. All right. Great Lakes met with us. Great Lakes Navy leadership were very kind and were great. Were very open with us. But DHS fled. They fled and they're hiding, and that is a clear indication that of how secretive they want to be on this effort, and so we are deeply concerned and we are going to stay on top of it.
Your thoughts then on the court action in California and the ruling there, and that it cost California $120 million?
It was a right ruling, but of course the question is, where does it apply? It certainly applies where the California district judge was presiding, but beyond the state of California to Illinois is a question. That case has to be appealed, likely will be appealed, and as it is appealed, I hope it will be confirmed at higher levels and then might apply to the nation. But it's a long process, and who knows what's going to happen in the meantime.
Would you suggest Governor Pritzker activate the Illinois National Guard to protect residents against anything ICE might be doing.
I'm gonna let Tim, before Tim answers that question, I just want to touch on a couple things that were said before. What the Navy base has agreed to provide, Department of Defense has agreed to provide DHS, is office space and parking with storage of non-lethal ammunition. That was laid out very clearly what that would be for a specific period of time ending October 5th. What we said, why is it important to have it in writing, is to make sure that that is adhered to. What is agreed to on a handshake, anyone who's dealt with President Trump understands, put it in writing, and even that's not enough, but we need to have that in writing, and that's why that is so important. The Navy personnel are not involved in anything else beyond providing office space and parking. That is the facilities. The question about, are we concerned of seeing people rounded up? It's not just Chicago, it's across the country. We are seeing efforts by DHS, Secretary Noem. It is a display of force to cause terror among communities. And yes, we are very concerned. It has to stop. And we have seen that they are going, they talk about going after the most dangerous. Governor Pritzker's been clear. We don't want dangerous criminals on our street. Everyone agrees we should take dangerous criminals off of our street. But we don't want ICE arresting random people, oftentimes including citizens, and deporting them, separating parents from children. This is not who we are as a nation. It is not acceptable, and all of us should stand up, speak out against it, and do everything we can to resist it. And Tammy, I'll let you.
Do you want to bring it down? Okay.
Bring it down. Thank you.
No worries. Guys, how's that?
So were the governor to ask me if he should activate the Illinois National Guard, my advice to him would be no. It is not an appropriate use of the National Guard. Again, this is political theater. This is an attempt to politicize our military for a wannabe tin pot dictator in Donald Trump. It is not the right use of the National Guard. And remember that if the governor activates the National Guard, he's pulling them from the training that they should be performing, that they are engaged in to maintain their military readiness, to do the job that they are supposed to be doing, which is defending us, or to respond to things like floods and tornadoes, which the Illinois National Guard does very well. Further, if you activate the Illinois National Guard, if the governor does that, that is then clearly paid for by the state of Illinois. And we know that that is costing in California at least $1 million a day. So that would be $1 million a day that we would have to pull out of Illinois state budget. I would highly recommend the governor not to do that. I do want to say to the people out there, everything that is happening, if National Guard from other states, and it's ironic that the governors of some of these states are the ones with higher crime rates in their cities than in Chicago, are sending their National Guard into Chicago, potentially. They are sending them into blue states. What I would say to people is, these National Guardsmen and women are doing their jobs. They are patriotic. They are doing their jobs. They cannot say no to a legal order from the President of the United States. Until the Supreme Court says it's an illegal order, they must execute those orders. So please don't harass the National Guard. They're being pulled away from their family members. They're being pulled away from the training that they should be doing, that they want to be doing to protect and defend us. The fight is a political one, and we're going to fight that political fight on behalf of the people of Illinois. But the National Guard, turning one state's National Guard against another, is absolutely the wrong thing to do. What National Guards have done is actually mutual support, so that when there's a tornado in Illinois, it's the Missouri National Guard who comes across the river and helps us. When we had the great flood in '93 and we were out there sandbagging, it was National Guardsmen from Iowa and Illinois and Mississippi and Missouri, and all helping each other out. That's what the National Guard should be doing. The National Guard should not be on the streets of our city intimidating citizens. They should not be carrying weapons of war and being told that they should be pointing those weapons of war on our citizens. That is not the use of the National Guard. I will also want to add one more thing. In our conversation, I have a bill that I've introduced, but I asked today to of the Navy to make sure that what they say to DHS and ICE is that when those personnel show up and they are on post, they better be clearly marked as ICE and DHS. As Senator Durbin mentioned earlier, they have now this procedure where they show up in fatigues that, if you're military like me, I can tell what's a Navy fatigue uniform and I know what's an Army, right? But the average citizen doesn't. And they're showing up and they're not clearly identifying themselves with ICE or DHS. And what I'm saying is they need to make sure that whoever shows up on the Navy base, especially if they're in some sort of a camouflage uniform, some sort of a tactical uniform, it is clearly marked so we know exactly who they are. I also asked them to make sure that we support our children. Many of the military families' children go to schools both in North Chicago as well as the charter school that is on post. And many of those children have had family members deported. And I want to make sure that the military family members who have children on those posts, that those children are also protected, but also the children of the community are also protected and not fearful of going on post to just pursue their education. So there's a lot to this. But the Navy is working very closely with us, and I thank them for that.
Senator, if I could just follow up what you said earlier about DHS fleeing and not meeting with you, does that suggest to any of you that perhaps the operation may not be waiting until tomorrow, but could be launching today?
I mean, we simply don't know, but it's certainly not the action of somebody who's doing something legal, and it's certainly not the action of somebody that is proud of what they're doing.
Senator, it sounds like you guys have had some limited conversations with DHS. Have you guys had any conversations with the White House?
No.
And we're hearing like roughly 300 ICE agents. Is that the intel that you guys have as well?
Nothing came out of this meeting with the Navy to suggest the number involved.
But you didn't see anyone in that building, any ICE or?
It was
or
locked
There
up.
was no presence or evidence of DHS. I think, again, what Senator Duckworth was talking about, the secrecy, the lack of transparency, the disinformation and misinformation that is sent is part of, I believe, the whole idea of trying to scare people, trying to keep communities on edge. The administration should be working to make every community in America feel safer and secure, more secure, and they're doing the exact opposite in communities that the president is targeting, and it needs to stop.
And then all their communications with us have been verbal. They're doing everything they can to avoid putting things in writing. So we're going to ask the Navy to put things in writing.
There have been ICE agents operating in Chicago for a while, so do you get a sense of what large numbers, like 250 or 300 agents, would allow them to do? I mean, would it be checkpoints or any sense of what that would?
One of the consulates contacted us and said last week 50 people were deported in one day from Chicago. And so that is at a lower number of active personnel. If you double or triple the number of ICE agents, you can imagine the number will be deported.
I know you guys keep using political theater, but that theater obviously causes fear to citizens. What message do you guys have for those citizens who are in this Lake County region who have that fear? What's the message to those citizens?
We're going to be meeting with a group of those citizens immediately after this press conference for that very reason. I sense as I travel through the Hispanic areas of Chicago a real sense of frustration, anger, and fear. Real fear. They're not going to church, they're not shopping, some of them are not sending their kids to school. This is for real. And it's a climate of fear which has never been part of America, and there should be. And I really deeply resent the president for doing this.
And we join them, and we join them in fighting back, and we stand with them, and we're going to make sure we do everything.
I think
we
the
can
important
to
thing is
support
every
them.
single day in the Senate and the House, Democrats are fighting to stop what this administration is doing. We're doing everything we can. Oftentimes it's not going to be seen on the front pages of the newspaper or in front of TV cameras, but we are standing up to this administration. We are calling out what they're doing. What every one of our residents should know, wherever they live, here in North Chicago, across Lake County, throughout Illinois, and across the country, is that we are fighting for them. What this administration is doing is wrong, and it needs to stop.
And we got to know also, let them know that they have rights, and let them make sure that they know their rights.
Thank you.
And if there are a knock at the door, they do not have to answer that door. Unless there's an active warrant, they do not have to answer any doors. And also, let them know that from I think most of the municipalities around Lake County, let them know that our police department is not getting involved with any ICE agents unless there is an active warrant. So I've told my police department that they do not get involved with anything that goes on with ICE or DHS. So
Follow up, Rock. If there is an active warrant, then North Chicago Police.
If it's an active warrant and there is a person that needs to be arrested, yes, they should be arrested. I mean, that is something that we will do no matter who it is.
Gotcha.
But as far as Just someone coming to your door saying, we want to come in? No, they should not answer.
I want to add to that. It's really important because DHS is showing up with an administrative internal warrant. That does not qualify as an active warrant.
Right.
So people need to know what type of warrant, because DHS personnel, some of these ICE agents around the country have been knocking on doors saying we have a warrant, and they give you something, and it's actually an internal DHS administrative paperwork, and it's not an actual warrant. So be very careful when somebody comes to knock on your
And
doors.
I know on our website, I speak to others, there is
Yeah.
Know Your Rights
Yes.
information for people.
One more question.
Yeah, they, I've heard or comments, but that that they're not gonna stick to Chicago, the ICE agents, then there will be actions in Lake County. Have you all heard anything about that?
I have not.
No.
We have
Not
no
at this-
specifics.
Did you hear that Marines may be coming? Where did that come from?
I did hear that they might be activating Marine reservists, but I asked specifically, and Great Lakes could not confirm that. But I was not able to talk to DHS and ask them that question today because, again, they locked the doors and ran away.
When you guys we talked about how they should be identifying themselves, are you talking about just on the base or in the communities? Because I don't. How would you?
Well, by law, they should always be identified. But I
How would
wanted
that-
in
how would-
particular.
How could you guys hold them accountable for that?
Well, so what Great Lakes can do is when they come on base, they have to be clearly marked. That is one place that I think that we can make that happen. We can hold them accountable from the Senate side, which is languages we're fighting for. I've introduced legislation. By law, they already have to be identified, but they're not doing it.
Yeah, we have legislation in the House I'm supporting, prohibiting masks, prohibiting covering of names and designations. You need to know who you're dealing with when there is a knock on the door. You have to know your rights, and you have to know who's knocking on the door.
Can I close with one point that I think is important? Every Thursday in that ceremony, which I've been honored to be part of, there are thousands of people who are participating, so proud of their daughters and sons who are now part of the United States Navy and gone through training. They're from all over the United States, and they come here, and we want them to leave with a solid impression that the Navy is standing not only behind their sons and daughters, but behind our Constitution. Let's do this and do it right and make America proud. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
Okay, right, thank you.